oh, I can't do this because I'm a woman, or I'm only going to get this far because I'm a woman. No, those ceilings don't exist. And I'm here to tell you, you can do everything. You can be that mom. You can be that business owner. You can be that wife. You can be that PTA president. All of those things at one time. I am living proof of it. I am here to show you that you can also do it.
Hey there, high performers. This is Dr. Josh Funk. In this podcast, I will be interviewing people from the sports and business world who have experienced hardship and come out on top. Through their challenges, strategies, and mindset, I hope that it will give you the tools you need to perform for life. Hey, high performers. This is Dr. Josh Funk, and I am excited to bring to you today somebody who has made a tremendous impact on Rehab to Perform. She has provided us with a lot of clarity over the years with regards to decision making in terms of putting us in a situation to be successful. She has been essential with regards to creating what I would call repeatable process. And overall, I can safely say that we would not be here without her today. So welcome, Nicole.
Thank you so much, Josh.
So I'm happy to have her on, but she literally juggles a lot of different buckets. She is a business owner. She is a mom. She's a wife, and she is a female. There's a lot of different dynamics at play here, and I think I see this time and time again with female business owners that there's a tug in a wide variety of different directions. And before we get into all of those different dynamics, Nicole, I'd love it if you could just share with us a little bit on your background and how you kind of got pushed into your role now as an entrepreneur.
Thanks, Josh. Well, thanks for having me on today. A little bit about my background. I'm from New York. Wear that really proudly that I am from New York City, the Bronx to be exact. And I grew up in an area where most people don't make it to where I am right now. I was very fortunate to go to a good school that afforded us opportunities like introducing us to music, introducing us to the arts. Most kids from my area didn't come up with that, but I was fortunate enough to get that. And I felt like in life I needed to pay that forward. Flash forward a bunch of years, I moved down to Maryland in 2010, simply because I needed to do better for my oldest daughter. At the time, she was 4 years old. We were living in New York, and I just didn't like the way I saw things going, and I wanted more for her. I wanted more for my future children as well. So we laid roots here, and here we've been ever since, and we will probably be here for a while. I worked with a general contractor in the area, and then my husband and I, we decided to expand upon our family. Not once, but twice. So once we hit baby number 3, the tug became very real between, juggling family life, juggling being a working mom, juggling being a wife as well. So I decided to stay home with my babies. But the New York in me made that not a very long-lasting trip staying home. I got bored. To be very, very honest, I was a bored stay-at-home mom and needed to do something. So my husband, God bless him, said one day, why don't you just consult? And initially I thought, who wants an HR consultant? No one needs an HR consultant. And I'm glad that I was wrong. Quite a few companies needed that HR consulting, that piece, the small businesses primarily. And that's who I love catering to, the small guy who doesn't have the big resources behind them. They're really good at what they do, whether it be laying carpets or being physical therapists. They are awesome at that part. But they just need a little bit of support on the back end with the employees and all the processes and things of that nature. So here we are. NLH Contracting has been in business since 2015, serving just those people.
Hey, there we go. And I know we're very, very appreciative of everything that you've done for us. And I think, much like you, we've grown kind of arm in arm, learned a lot over the course of time. I think hearing you there, the tugs of work-life balance. And for you, it's like, all right, I've got this work piece, but then let's talk about the life piece, right? I am a female, I am a wife, and I'm a mom. There are so many different dynamics to juggling those. I'm a big believer that work-life balance doesn't usually really ever exist. it could be in play for a short period of time, but it's almost like this pendulum that kind of keeps swinging back and forth. And it's best that we just kind of find a rhythm, find what works for us, ideally having some kind of a happy medium. But first and foremost, I think the challenges that we've discussed in previous conversation is what it's like to be a female in the corporate world. Talk to me a little bit about some of the struggles that you either realized at a younger age through previous employment and maybe even some of your current experiences now.
Well, of course, in my early years working in construction, there were some challenges there. Being young, being a woman, being Black. All three of these things just did not go with construction, especially from a management perspective. And I remember back when I was in New York, I worked with general contractors on rehab buildings. And one of the subcontractors came to me one day and said, it's really not about, how young you are. It's not about the fact that you're Black because, I'm Indian. The guy was an Asian. And it's about none of that. It's really that you will not get the respect because you're a woman. And that hit home. It really, really hit home and put a lot of things into perspective. Now, that being said, there was another person that was around me who said, forget what he's just said. What you really need to do is learn the process. You need to be as good or better than the next person because you have just a little bit more to prove. And that struck a chord with me even more than what the other guy said. So I made it my business to learn the process, to learn the business, to learn the trades, to really know what I was talking about as I was out there in the field. And it helped me through. I won't say that, it was some grand Cinderella moment and everything became great because it didn't. But it definitely boosted me to the point where I was able to demand respect from the people that I was working with.
I love how you took something that could largely be viewed as very, very negative. It could put you in a situation where you kind of feel like the ceiling was dropped on you. You might feel like you're not in control of anything, and you really took ownership over what you could control. If I relate back to the book Mindset, right, we've got this fixed mindset, growth mindset. Fixed mindset's a little bit more, of an emphasis on external factors, things that we typically can't control. And I love how you automatically shifted your internal narrative towards focusing on what exactly you could control, which unfortunately, in society was being a little bit better than even the standard that was in place. But the fact that you took ownership over that, I think, is largely, can be attributed to a lot of the success that you've had to date. If I think about success and growth mindset and some of these qualities that have allowed you to transition into life as a successful entrepreneur, how does that tie into being the mother of 3 daughters, serving in this role model role, and things that you are continually communicating with them on a regular basis?
Well, I have to always put it into perspective. The biggest thing is understanding this one thing. What is my why? And really, what is my why? My kids, my family. Those are the biggest, most important things to me. And then being that role model, being that strong person, being that person who is looked to, seen as the role model, not only by them, my kids, but also by the people that are around us. I take that, and that's kind of how I push forward, how I move forward. So over the years, it's been a struggle to establish myself as a viable business. Number one, because most companies don't have a separate or outsourced human resources component. That's just not a regular business that happens in this area. So there was first establishing myself as a human resources consultant, somebody that you really need to have, another business person that's really, really important, just as much as your accountant or your insurance person. So there was that. The other piece is establishing myself as someone who's knowledgeable in the area of human resources and even business in general, because a lot of this is not just about your employees. It's about how you run, how your business functions in general. What policies, what processes do you have in place to support the people, the human resources that you bring into your organization? Keeping focused on all of those things, that brings me back to making sure that I am the role model for the person next to me, making sure that I'm doing the best constantly, not only for my kids, but for the other small businesses, especially the women who are coming up behind me saying, oh, I can't do this because I'm a woman, or I'm only going to get this far because I'm a woman. no, those ceilings don't exist. And I'm here to tell you, you can do everything. You can be that mom. You can be that business owner. You can be that wife. You can be that PTA president. All of those things at one time. I am living proof of it. I am here to show you that you can also do it.
Yeah, and I think that on a macro level, you're not only providing a very empowering message, but you're also talking about, or at least real briefly there, you talked about like being your best self. Nicole being her version of herself has allowed her to then impact people like myself, our company. And a little backstory here before we go a little bit further, but like I met her at Small Business Development Center seminar. Was it 2016? I'm trying to remember when it was.
Actually, 2015.
2015, right? Going to this presentation and just being of the mindset that I thought we were finally getting some traction. I think we were finally getting going with regards to creating something that I thought was eventually going to be, something not only profitable at that time, but ideally something viable long-term that ideally we could potentially scale at some point. And continually hearing the word like compliance. And I just went to her presentation. I was like, I don't know who you are, but I need you, okay? And we've kind of been friends ever since. And, obviously, I don't know at this point, is it a contractor or whatever? Regardless, she's been in our corner ever since, and I'm very thankful for it. But getting back to just the concept of being at your best self, as a mom, as a wife, as a business owner, what are some things that you do to continually put yourself first so that you're able to be at your best to Charlemagne, to your 3 daughters, and to all of your, people that you are contracting your business's services to?
So one of the big things is to stay grounded, always remembering that all of these people are in my life. And I do need to make sure that I kind of cater to all of them. And one of the big things that I've been paying attention to a little bit more is myself as well. And some people are like, oh my God, that sounds so selfish. Absolutely not. The only way that I can take care of my children is if I take care of myself. The only way that I can take care of my clients and their business is if I take care of myself, because if I'm not here, I can't take care of any of them. So staying grounded, taking care of myself, making sure that I'm there, that I'm present. I really, really pride myself on that piece in itself, making sure that my face is seen, making sure that my voice is heard by everyone in my life. So my kids, huge, huge piece of my life. I spend a lot of time in their school, and I have parents that are like, do you work here? No, I don't. I just make sure that my presence is known here. Why? Because they are just that important to me. My business, of course, making sure that I'm not just on the phone with my people. I go out to work sites. I visit. I'm keeping a finger on the pulse. If I can't get to see you, I'm going to give you a call. If I can't call you, I'm going to shoot you a text message just to make sure that I can check in on you. And it's not just with the owners. It's also with the employees, because at the end of the day, those are the people that my company are here to serve. So we do some FaceTime with the people. We do some training if necessary, getting our finger on the pulse on behalf of the owners that have brought us into the businesses, just to make sure that everybody is moving in the right direction. And then in terms of that self-care, so my baby is now 5. Yes, my baby. And over the years, I have actually kept all of that baby weight that I gained from that baby 5 years ago. So I've started to focus a little more on myself by getting back into the gym, by doing some changes in my eating habit, by just being more active and being more cognizant of the fact that I do need to have some self-care go on, as well as taking care of everybody else that's around me.
And it's not an easy job. I can say, at least from my experience, my mom being somebody who I saw juggle the demands, not necessarily from an entrepreneurship standpoint, but, my parents were divorced growing up, so certain periods where her plate was certainly a little bit more full than others, her juggling things. And I will be the first person to admit, and probably not the last, but women run the world. They are the decision makers in a lot of households. So I just think the headspace and the things that women are carrying around with regards to taking care of the kids. You might not have a lot of males really admit this or appreciate that I'm mentioning this, but oftentimes they're the ones making decisions for the husband when it comes to things like coming to physical therapy, right? There's a reason why one of the main groups that we try to interact with and communicate with on a regular basis are the females that have kids that are married. With those pressures, I think we're only realizing more and more what women are capable of and it's obviously long overdue at this point, but in the workplace, where do you see your daughters being able to potentially push themselves into in terms of seeing some of the barriers that have been overturned over the past year, 10 years, 50 years as a whole?
So I'm really happy to say that one of the biggest things that makes me so proud is that they won't see 90% of those barriers, simply because we have pushed so far over the course of years. Now, I won't say that there's no barriers there for them, but there's a greater pathway towards them and toward them going towards leadership positions. For example, I own this business with my husband, and our goal at the end of the day is that if the children wanted to, they could take over this business, or they could let the business run itself, and then just use whatever income to support them on whatever other ventures they want to go on. If one wants to own a cupcake shop, as my 7-year-old does, absolutely, go ahead and do it. And she has that business mind at 7. Not, I want to be a baker. No, that's not what she said. She wants to own a cupcake shop. Back when I was younger, no, we just wanted to be the bakers at the cupcake shop. We didn't want to own the cupcake shop. So in that in itself, we've shifted the ideas in our children in that they can do more, be more, grow into more, have more. So that's one of the greater things that I'm looking forward to with my kids, particularly as they get older and grow.
I think that's awesome. And hearing certain little things there, some of the messaging, some of the narratives that we're creating at such a young age. I think another big part, and knowing that your daughters are involved in other activities, athletics being a piece, right? We've got a high-level gymnast for sure in the group. What role does something like athletics play when we look at just participation and with regards to gender equality? Let's talk about some of the things that are going on currently, like what's going on with the U.S. women's national team, right? So there are different narratives going on a grander scale that I think also become a conversation at younger ages, at least where I've seen, where I've got parents of the same household, and this is my lens through coaching lacrosse, but participation being very, very different for the boys in the household and the girls. So while you don't have boys, what are your thoughts surrounding athletics? Why athletics? And where do you think that plays into the bigger picture of women in today's world?
So in our household, we don't have gender-specific sports, for example. All 3 of my girls have participated in Taekwondo or presently participate in Taekwondo, for example, which is a very physical sport. Let's get that straight. Now, why did my husband, honestly, he chose it. Why did he choose it? There's a high level of focus required, which is great for children in itself. There's a high level of discipline that goes along with it. Now, I'm also the mom of a 13-year-old who happens to be a 3rd-degree black belt. That is not an easy feat. I've watched her over the course of 9 years grow into what she is. And at 13, to be a disciplined 3rd-degree black belt, an instructor, that says a lot. It takes a lot of discipline. It also takes a lot of commitment. She's been doing this since she was 4. And she's had to go to practice 3 times per week. She's had to teach other children, for 2 years. She has to continually test as she moves forward. And at no point have we ever put in place that this is a girl sport or this is a boy sport. That is something that we really didn't focus on. Others did, but we didn't. And we did that purposefully because it instilled a certain confidence in her. Now, as a 3rd-degree black belt and as a 13-year-old, she'll go up against grown men, like literal grown men in practice for sparring, and will fight them the same way she would a 10-year-old little girl, with just as much poise, discipline as she goes into it as possible. And I applaud that we were able to contribute to her being that confident in herself and in her abilities to be able to go out there. For our younger ones, that discipline, it also exists in other sports like gymnastics, which my other daughter is in. She's 7 years old. They have practice 3 times a week for 3 hours. Plus there are private lessons on top of that or other practices that she might have to go through throughout the week. Now, she's 7. She's a 2nd grader, and she has also maintained being a straight A student. All of my children are straight A students. It's that we have this is the level that we've put out there for our children. This is what we expect from you. And this is what they give to us, quite frankly. And I think it's really because we expect it from them that they give it to us. So sports in general creates this area where children are able to learn how to be disciplined, learn how to shoot for goals, learn how to follow a process, all those things that they'll need later on in life to be successful human beings. Forget about being successful women, successful anything, but just successful human beings overall.
I think that's tremendous. I mean, you talked about so many productive narratives there that I think a lot of people are striving for with their kids. Getting into some of the negative stereotypes that females in the past have kind of carried around by no fault of their own, but too emotional, not assertive. Those are two things that I think you're handling with something like a Taekwondo, where you're getting into a controlled physical altercation. There's a certain amount of stoicism from an emotional standpoint. Or honestly, the reason why I like individual sports like gymnastics and Taekwondo a lot is there's a lot of control in terms of handling success and failure, right? Your highs never get too high, your lows never get too low. There's continual benchmarking. You earn a new belt. You have to meet certain criteria. The standard is the standard, which I love that you talked about when it came to academics. So, I mean, overall, I think there's so many productive things to take from sports. And granted, that's the lens in which I grew up in, where it was we're doing something every single season. You just have to pick something. But I think that it creates a situation where ideally, gymnastics is going to end at some point, right? Lacrosse ended for me at some point, but all of the narratives and traits and, lessons that I took from those sports ideally allowed me to thrive in a business environment. I mean, you were talking about being met with different failures or struggles that you had gone through on your journey to being an entrepreneur. I imagine you could look back and kind of say, hey, I don't know if I would have been as prepared for life as an entrepreneur, right?
Right. And I must say, I didn't do sports as a kid. I did dance as a kid, but I didn't do organized sports. But what I will take from the things that I did do is that it prepared me for just getting out there and knowing that I needed to keep going, even in the dance world. Striving to make sure that it was your best show ever, making sure that even if you messed up, you kept going, you kept pushing for more. I think sports does the same exact thing, especially for kids these days. There was a point where there was this whole participation thing. Everybody gets a medal, yay. But, I like the sports, especially the ones that my kids are in, where you have to work on your own merit. And what you get is what you earn. I really appreciate that lesson. I'm so happy to be able to give my kids that. And through the activities that I did have as a kid, they taught me those things. You earn everything you get. Nothing was given to me as a kid. I did have some great leaders and role models in my life through music and arts. And, everything we got, we earned. Every show we did, we earned. Every award we won, we earned. I'm glad that I was able to have that instilled in me. And I'm glad that I'm able to instill it in my children, especially with the help of sports and athletics these days.
And I love your word choice, earned, because when I think of earned, I think of committing to certain things that ideally eventually end up allowing us to earn something, but the focus wasn't necessarily on that achievement or earning it. It was all of the little things that went together on a daily basis. And I think that ties in perfectly with your role right now and how you kind of jumped into this consulting position, or maybe we should say it found you during a time in your life where things were pulling you in all different directions. But the process and policy, those things are huge. I know you've communicated that a lot to us. I know that's a major focus of your role and your business now. Just share a little bit about what you see people struggling with when it comes to, their jump into self-employment or their early years when it comes to running a small business.
So having processes in place helps you to create a standard, love that word, to create a standard by which you're going to run your business or run your operation. Making sure that you're not just kind of flying by the seat of your pants as you do things. It also keeps you from having to worry too much, from having to overthink things. Well, should I have done this? Should I have done that? Well, here's your process. It's proven. This is why you're doing this. We've tested this. This is the reason we're going forward board with this particular way of doing things. Far too often, small businesses, they start out and they say, oh, I want to be very relaxed. I want to be very relatable. I want to be someone's friend. The reality is that as a business owner, you are not the friend. You have the responsibility of holding someone's livelihood in your hands. What you do on a day-to-day basis can determine whether someone is able to go home and pay their rent or not. So you can't take that lightly. You shouldn't take that lightly. One of the ways of not taking that lightly is being prepared to have your employees, having the processes in place. Right now, we're going through this craziness in the world with the virus, and many people called me and said, can I just fire everybody? And I'm like, no, we have a process for this. These are the things that we need to do first. Can I just make them stay home and not pay them? No, we can't do that either. There's ways that we can go about lengthening the time that people are here or decreasing the amount of staff, decreasing hours. There's a process that we have here. Do I need to pay people? Do I not need to pay people? Whatever that is, you need to have those processes in place before you get to the point of having to ask the question. Create the culture of being prepared as opposed to creating a culture of being reactive to whatever situation you have going on. As a consultant, we started out as just HR. That was it. It was just, what are the basic policies and procedures that you need at your company in order to be compliant with state laws? And quickly what we found was other business practices were being neglected, which led to a need for additional HR services. Well, we found that if you don't fix those other business practices, you can give all of the energy you want to your employees, but if those other policies aren't in place, you're never going to function. You're never going to float. You're always going to sink. So my company not only handles the human resources aspect of things, we also handle finance. Are your books in order? Do you have a bookkeeper? Are you paying your bills? Do you even know what your bills are for the entire month? And are you taking enough income to cover all of these bills? These are things that we look at NLH Contracting as a part of our business consulting. We very quickly realized the need to not just offer these one little individual or these one-off individual services. We needed to offer the full package to our employees or our clients. We needed to be able to tell them, you can hire these 6 people, but you may need to raise your rates over here in order to support having these additional 6 people. Or you may actually be too top heavy. You may need to lay off these people because your business doesn't call for it with the types of services that you're doing and the amount of output that you have. All these decisions that need to be made by business owners. As I said at the beginning, a lot of people are very good at the things that they do, whether it be in laying carpet or being a physical therapist. But the actual running of the business, they're kind of lacking on because they're literally just functioning from the perspective of the thing that they do. So we've come out here to just kind of help people along through that process on the things that they just may not know how to do.
I remember meeting you, and it's just so funny that you just went through that very, very well put description of what it is that you provide small businesses. But when I met you, it was, I think, me, Zach, and it might have been Jared at that point, and we might have had somebody working at the front desk, maybe. We had an idea, we had a pretty decent service, and that was really about it. We didn't have much else. We didn't know anything about bookkeeping, operations, administrative stuff, processes for clerical and clinical. If I had to summarize in 2 books collectively, something that I think that you allowed me to think differently about, it would be more like a mix of E-Myth Revisited and then Checklist Manifesto. So working with you, thinking much more in what checklist can we put in place so we don't have to think about this, so it doesn't occupy headspace? What things do we have to communicate people proactively to ensure that they know how to function a little bit more autonomously, or they know how to react if something pops up that is completely either negative or unexpected? And then ideally, if I look at just the macro of it, allowed me to sleep better at night. I just remember worrying and hearing things, risks associated with growing a business and having more employees and the risk mitigation side of things. Ideally, putting us in a situation where not only can we grow in a more predictable, repeatable fashion, but ideally grow in a manner in which we are providing a safe environment for our employees and the people that we are trying to serve. So I just can't thank you enough and really just give a credit to your services and companies like yours, especially your company, for what you provide to small business owners. Before we wrap up, I really want to give you an opportunity to talk a little bit about where NLH is right now and what you see the future of not only your company looking like, but HR as a whole, especially given some of the things going on right now with today's public health crisis.
So where NLH is right now is we are in a little bit of a growth pattern, actually. We took on a few new clients between December and January, and therefore we had to scale up on the staffing side of things as well internally. One of the big things that we've been doing a lot of is more policy development, more training, and that's internal, just to make sure that we can duplicate the senior levels of our management and make sure that we can carry on this work even if we aren't directly doing it ourselves. So just a lot of training and development of the staff that's under us, and then growing out our different areas of the company being HR, accounting, and operations management support. So that's the huge thing that we're doing right now. Another thing that we're doing is working a lot more with our small businesses as they grow. Most of my businesses for years were 5, 6, 7, 10 employees. Well, now they're growing to 25, 30, 40 employees. And at that point, there are certain things that you absolutely just need to handle internally within your group. So what NLH has been doing is creating and developing more seminars, things on how to appropriately address management, addressing areas of concern like harassment or even abuse that may happen within your organization or you may have been witness to in your organization, and now you have a responsibility to deal with those things. So we've been heavily on the teaching and training and seminar side of things here recently to make sure that we're preparing people to be able to effectively run their businesses. And where I see things going in general is that business is going to continue to grow, but more importantly, small businesses are going to continue to be huge in the world that we live in. No longer are we these huge conglomerate, corporate type entities that we used to be, where it was like 5 or 6 a handful. No, there's a lot more smaller entities handling what bigger business used to do, just of course on a smaller scale. So as you have these smaller pocket, more boutique type organizations that are handling very specific needs, they'll also, I believe, will be a lot more collaboration in between organizations, or a lot more outsourcing. Let you do what you do great and let me do what I do even better. I think that that's kind of where we're going with things right now, whether it be from the perspective of medicine, whether it be from the perspective of business consulting, financial consulting, educational consulting, even sports consulting areas that we might be getting into. So it's kind of where I see us.
I love hearing that. And I love also just a small thing that I took from that was the fact that people are reaching out to you because they are admitting that they need your help. And if I have any advice for anybody who's in that small business, self-employed scope, the quicker you ask people for help, the quicker you'll probably get where you want to get to, and the less likely you are to run into potential hiccups. So yeah, Nicole, all transparency, it's probably a plug for you, but I'm appreciative of, looking at something right now where we're dealing with so much uncertainty on a regular basis. And I know I talked to you a little bit about before, it's like, juggling what's the, next rule that's going to come out according to state, because we're functioning under the Department of Health. And you've got the, obviously the social responsibility component to this. And then we're over here and we're trying to take care of our team and our people and provide a service that is necessary. So managing the complexities surrounding each of those 3 different areas. I mean, I know you've been just locking arms with us throughout the course of the process, and it's certainly provided, and I mentioned it earlier, provided clarity for us, or at least as much clarity as we can. And it's not helping me sleep tremendously, but it's certainly helping me sleep a little bit better. So I'm very appreciative to you and your team. Tell us a little bit about where people can find you, where they can connect with you, and learn more about you and NLH.
Absolutely. So, of course, we have our website, www.nlhcontracting.com. We are actually located right here in Rockville, Maryland. So we're local to the Metro DC area, and we do travel outwards for some of our clients as well. So even if you're not in the Metro DC area, but you're looking for some services, this is something that we can absolutely support people people remotely. We are on Twitter at NLH Contracting. We're also on LinkedIn. We're on Facebook. I think that's about it. Hopefully my marketing person will not be upset at me about that. And then finally, if you did need to get in contact with us, we are info at nlhcontracting.com.
Awesome. Yep. Nicole, once again, I've thanked you enough times on here, but thank you for making time for us tonight. And I'm sure we will be in touch very soon.
Perfect. Thanks so much, Josh.
Thank you for listening to the High Performers Podcast. We want to encourage you to join the conversation, access the show notes, and catch our latest episodes on the website. Please head to highperformerspodcast.com. And if you enjoyed the podcast, we'd love for you to subscribe, rate, and give us a review on Apple Podcasts. Until next time, thanks again for listening.